here. Got everything?
Yeah. Okay, ready?
The two of you will go away. Have a nice time. It'll be good for you.
A little bit.
These are very small glasses.
I know that I haven't been the greatest friend.
Excuse me, haven't I seen you in something? Well, you're on TV, right?
This is my friend Anna. She's also an actress.
Have I seen you in anything?
No, I would be surprised. God, you're so lucky to get paid to do what you love.
What is it?
It's just a really dumb horror movie.
You have to take your clothes off?
It's like the 10th time in 2 years.
You ever feel like a whore?
Do you ever feel like a whore? You see how I'm desperate and disgusting?
I've just never seen someone look at me with so much disgust.
Jesus, you act so innocent.
We're gonna die out here, and it's your fault. Your life is over. My life is over.
We'd all be over soon enough anyways, right?
I got to talk to you guys about this for Tribeca, right? When you screened it at Tribeca. I love this film. I got the chance to watch it a second time for this interview. It's so because it starts off one way and then becomes kind of elliptical and crazy. And I'm wondering how much of the film, Sophia, you found during the editing process, during the shooting process, and how much you stuck to your initial script.
A lot of what's in the movie is in the script, which my husband Lawrence Levine wrote. We really wanted to play with this idea of performance and this idea that as actresses, the two main characters are inhabiting roles as actresses, but they're also performing their ideas of gender and femininity and what it means to be a woman. And then as an audience member, we're also, as human beings, performing all the time how we want to be perceived and what we think the world expects of us and what we want to reflect back to the world. And so all of that was in the script. But then Zach Clark, the editor, kind of...
Also a filmmaker himself. He just released Little Sister, right?
Yeah. He really latched onto this idea of playing with performance, playing with breaking the fourth wall, and added an even, I think, stronger level. He's the one who added the slate that you sometimes see in the movie that came in the editing, and the weird, trippy back and forth editing cuts. So Zach brought a whole other layer of performance and what's real and what's not, was really happening.
I'm curious how you initially responded to the sort of self-reflexive additions to the film, because I could see being sort of taken aback by that and having to have someone sort of argue for a reason for that, even though it does serve the film incredibly well, but as the initial vision behind it, it could seem a little daunting, or not daunting, but I think
I think I was really nervous about certain things. It's written into the script. In the very beginning of the movie and throughout the movie, the characters will often look straight into the camera, and that was written into the script. But then in the edit, the things that Zach added, it was a very long conversation between him and me about whether it was going too far, whether it was too on the nose, whether people would understand what was going on. But he really made such an elegant argument for why adding elements of what you usually see behind the scenes in film would apply to these two women as they sort of break down these roles.
And also as an element of ambiguity to the whole story, which I think makes it even stronger, right? So when you come to the end, you're not necessarily left with a very obvious answer to a thriller. You're left with more questions about femininity and about performance and about the idea of a thriller. Mackenzie, I've interviewed you 3 times, I think. This is the 3rd time, maybe. You are an extremely nice, lovely person. You are very good at playing intense. Why is that?
I don't know. I was a very aggressive child and maybe a bit violent. I was remembering today when you were talking, there's so many things about Sophia and I that are very similar in terms of the way we were when we were younger, I think, but, or now. But yeah, when I was younger, I was always biting people and just wrestling too much. And I think I just have a lot of I don't know, aggressive energy that needs an outlet, but I don't feel aggressive in my daily interactions in the world. But then when I get a role, I'm like, here it goes.
What drew you to this role? What drew you to working with Sophia?
Well, first the script, because I didn't know Sophia before I read the script, and the script just like blew me away and came out of nowhere and felt so like, I don't know, private in a way, like somebody was speaking to my own sort of insecurities and demons and articulating them in a very like active way that felt so respectful of the female experience and how insular and claustrophobic it can feel to have these sort of expectations of a way of being that you feel like you're constantly striving to meet and failing to meet them, and how private and internal and claustrophobic it can feel. And she made it active and treated it with the like all the importance of, I don't know, an urgent story that needed to be told that was thrilling in itself. And that was so cool to see somebody treat emotions like a thriller.
I think outside of not just the moments where we're talking about performance and being an actress in the industry, one of my favorite moments of the film that I think gets a little bit at what you're talking about is the moment where you're interacting with this guy that you clearly have an interest in, and it becomes an element of like, is your character being too aggressive? Oh, he goes after this girl who's kind of demure and hanging out in the shadow and quiet, and it just knocks your character back completely, because there's this whole element of like, what kind of woman are you being in that moment, and how does that reflect your own femininity?
Yeah, and it is a really important moment, because I think it's one of the least like offensive displays of Anna's aggression or her intensity. I find, I don't know, I really relate to
She's
that.
just trying to interact.
And she's just giving it back to him, and he's telling her some bullshit stuff, and she's asking questions and having a conversation, and she's not just wowed by his like travels to the Far East.
I've never related to a character more, I have to tell you.
Same.
Like, I feel like I have so many interactions in my life where afterwards I'm like, I thought, hey,
definitely.
what the fuck?
No, I mean, you have to just talk to people all the time and be like, oh, really? That sounds neat.
No, I mean like in personal life where you're kind of like...
Sorry. I respect your job.
I realized that my reaction sounded real when I shouted. Well, in personal life where you're like, I think that went really well. And then you sort of suddenly realize that, oh, maybe you were too aggressive with the person or asking too many questions and too invested in the conversation, and they wanted something much more light and playful.
I mean, that scene could be just a documentary of my life, of just thinking that that's flirting and having like an engaged,
you just
aggressive.
did it.
Yeah, I just did it to you, and maybe your feelings are hurt right now. I don't know. But that, that feeling of feeling engaged, like you're on the same page as somebody, and then getting the feedback that you're wrong, and not only the way you interpreted the situation was wrong, but that people are looking for a different type of woman than you generally, and that isn't the way to behave to get anywhere. I feel like that was a lot of feedback I got, especially when I was younger. And what's interesting about Anna is she never had any feedback that turned all of she never had any positive reinforcement for that behavior. It was constantly like these letdowns, and so it all hardened and sort of twisted, and she's like, I don't know, all these feelings have become really sort of ugly and powerful in her, because there's never been any contrary indications that she's fine.
And in a certain way, that reflects the scenes that we see in the auditions at the top of the film, which is like, I am performing as a person that I think you want me to be. Oh, this isn't actually what you want me to be at all. Did that come from a personal place for you? I know the script was written by your husband, but I would imagine he's heard stories from actresses that you've worked with, or maybe from your own auditions if you audition.
Yeah, I feel, I started out as an actor, and I've often felt that I didn't fit into this idea of what an actress was even supposed to look like. I would go to auditions, and everyone would be wearing like a ton of makeup, and they would have brushed their hair and were wearing like tight clothes, and I just would just feel so out of place. And like,
Did you say they would have brushed their hair?
Yeah. Which I find like very oppressive. No, I just I would just be like, I'm never gonna make it in this industry that expects actresses to behave and look in such a specific way. And so yeah, that audition scene came from just constantly feeling like a failure. And in the acting that I did do, often I was asked to get naked, and so that was like something we wanted to play with a lot in this movie, was just like, when is it okay to be naked in a movie? When are you being exploited? What is, like, why do men expect women to be naked in a movie? Is it to titillate? Is it for some like essential part of the story? And that's something we wanted to play around with in that.
Often, like that, like quite often?
For me?
Sure. I mean, I find that,
Yeah,
personally, I
check it
find that fascinating. I feel like if I was making a movie, I would, like, as a person, as a man writing something with women in it, that my immediate question would be like, do I need nudity in this? Because I'm going to go out of my way as much as possible to never have to ask someone to do that.
Oh, that makes you good, I think.
I think that just makes me scared of the actually asking somebody. Yeah.
I think like,
Because it should be a big deal to ask somebody,
Right.
and it's become so normalized instead of.
well, there was like a moment in time when I started working in movies where like the nudity was casual and it was not sexualized, and it felt kind of like fun and liberating to be naked and to treat the human body as just like whatever. It's just a human being, so it's fine. But somehow at some point that transitioned into me feeling like very objectified, and just directors would assume I would get naked, and they wouldn't like treat those moments as though they were very vulnerable. And that's sort of actually like when I decided I really didn't like acting, because I just started to feel like an object. And that was like really disheartening for me. But yeah, I think a lot of like directors, not a lot, I don't know, I think some people get into this biz to be around hot chicks naked.
How do you think that, fair enough. How do you think that feeling of being objectified plays itself out in regards to these two women dealing with each other, knowing that the other one is an actress, and they're both coming from situations where maybe they have felt objectified? In terms of how they treat each other.
Well, I think a sort of interesting aspect of all of this is there's also a power that can be drawn from being adored and objectified, and Anna and Beth is tapping into that power, and it's a very like voiceless, powerless thing. But from Anna's perspective, it seems like she's playing the system, and she's doing it in the right way to gain traction in her career and to be adored and to have like a very easy road in life. And I think she both resents the ease with which she'll objectify herself, and also the benefits that she's reaping from that exchange. And Anna feels like excluded from that economy.
I mean, and this happens in friendships, especially I think in the entertainment industry, where one person gets a little bit of a little bit further ahead than the other, right? I mean, you have someone who gets a better film as an actor or as a director, gets to suddenly direct a project that you think to yourself, well, why aren't I getting that opportunity? I'm trying just as much. And it affects the personal dynamic of friendships. Have either of you had that as you've sort of made your way in the industry? No names, it's, you know.
I haven't a lot. I think I not really, to be honest. But I do think that like I've had problems dating people in my industry, and that it really becomes an issue in that environment, and it's less of an issue when you're dating somebody outside of your industry.
Right, because you come home to the person that you're dating and you're like, I got this job, and they're like, oh, great, cool.
Yeah, and like it has felt very loaded in the past, and it's it's hard to be in a close relationship with somebody that you can compare your successes in a 1-to-1 ratio, even if it's a man that you're dating and it's not actually comparable. It still feels like a magnifying glass on your own failures, I guess. But I don't know. I think.
Well, I definitely, I mean, the whole movie is based on my feelings of jealousy and competition with certain friends who ended up becoming more successful than me. But I also think that in general, in our society, people look outwards for validation so often because there's like an essential element that's missing from everyone, where they just can feel okay in who they are and accept it themselves. And I think that's because we've created a world where we're bombarded with images of who we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to look like, what we're supposed to spend money on, how we're supposed to spend our time, how much money we're supposed to have. And there's this whole list of things that we feel are like fed constantly. Everywhere you go, there's billboards, there's TVs at gas stations and in taxi cabs, and you're just like always seeing what you're supposed to be. And so I think it causes people to constantly look outside of themselves for self-acceptance, and then when other people are getting the things that they have convinced themselves will make them feel better about themselves, it's really easy to feel so pitted against the same people. Rather than creating a community where we all lift each other up, we have this like scarcity mentality that there's not enough to go around.
Mackenzie, you have a wonderful moment in the film where you get to play sassy, and I think I get the joke, but I just want to make sure that you know you're not playing sassy in that scene.
Go on.
That's my question. Did you know that you weren't playing sassy?
What was I playing?
Angry,
Horrifying?
Violent and horrifying. Threatening, maybe?
Yeah, I guess I know that. I don't think I was like making a joke in that moment. I think I was probably oblivious to that. But no, I don't think that's what sassy is. I think sassy was our little joking thing that we did earlier, where I
that's right. That
like
was
made fun of your job. Yeah.
But not that's not sassy. What was the production like on this film? Because it looks beautiful, and we've talked about this before and how you were very influenced by Robert Altman's Three Women, and you did an amazing job of pulling off very specific homages to that film, just in the way that the film looks. So what was the production like on the film? How much time did you have? How difficult was it?
Big Sur is a really isolated place, and I'd spoken to a lot of people who said it was going to be virtually impossible to film there. Everyone is really private. It doesn't really seem like anyone there cares so much about movies that like they'd be so excited to just have you there. And then we weren't a big enough budget. We didn't have a big enough budget to pay people off. So I thought the way to get around that was to have like a very, very small crew so that we would have a really small footprint in the community. So it was just like a really intimate 4-person crew, 2 actresses who all lived in a house together. And
4-person crew?
Yeah. Well, and then my sister, I guess she counts as crew, right?
Yeah.
She was our personal chef.
It was the most wonderful experience, creatively and personally, I've ever had.
It was really
so
fun.
Lovely.
How much time did you guys have?
We shot in Big Sur for a month, and then we shot in LA for a week. And Mackenzie and Caitlin came out to Big Sur a week early to do rehearsals and to get to know each other a bit. So it was like 6 weeks total. It was really the best 6 weeks of my life.
Wow, that's amazing. 6 weeks is a good amount of time. That's amazing.
Yeah, I was really lucky, and I had never met Mackenzie or Caitlin before, and they were just so willing to go with the process and put in so much time and effort and energy and hard work to create this movie. And I don't think the movie would be nearly as good if they hadn't not just been as talented as they are, but also just so committed to the process.
Mackenzie, we've seen in *Halt and Catch Fire*, or at least I have, that you're, sorry, that was my burn, that you're extremely willing to go to vulnerable places and be emotional on camera. But this film, I think you go to much more blurry places in terms of vulnerability. What were some of the most challenging moments of performing in this film? And did you find it challenging, or was it all kind of cathartic and relieving in a way?
No, I did find it really challenging. I found a lot of different things challenging. Playing Beth is so hard, Caitlin's character. So oh wait, can we talk about that? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
the identities sort of
when there's like a bit of an inversion that goes on in the film, it's suffocating and horrible, and there's no moment of catharsis at all. So it's pure inner. It was so uncomfortable, and I really feel for Caitlin for having to play that character for the lion's share of the movie, because it's really, really difficult to not have a voice and not have any moment of catharsis for your character and just simply exist on the inside, like eyes looking out of a beautiful prison cell.
It's very passive. Like, how do you sort of make something active for you as an actress that is essentially supposed to come across as passive?
Yeah, like always trying to speak but never getting the chance, or like wanting to try but never even getting to the point of trying. It was really. You
do this
strange.
wonderful thing that I noticed as her, where you double hand your face, kind of at times. I don't know if you ever noticed.
Oh no.
Really, it's really smart, and it's really articulate about that character. When someone's talking to her in a certain way, you're going like.
Oh, and just I don't know that. Yeah, and then what else was? I mean, shooting the there was a big woods sequence. I really struggle when something's written into the script as like a huge dramatic moment, because then the whole shoot, I'm just like, well, I can't wait to ruin the movie by not being able to do what's expected of me. And so all my anxiety is going for the whole movie about this one thing. And so that whole night we shot from like, I don't know, midnight until 4 a.m. or something in the woods, just like screaming and crying and fighting and like yelling at the camera. Not that much of it even made it in the film, but it was really hard.
Yeah, but you were like such a trooper, and that night was crazy, and you had to do all of this physical stuff like fighting and stage fighting, and then at the end of that night you had to have an emotional breakdown.
Oh, that was hard, yeah.
And you just kept doing it, and I just think I asked you to do it like 12 times and try all different ways of doing it, and you just did it every time. And we had like a million things to choose from. It was so cool.
Cool.
Great acting.
It was excruciating.
Mackenzie, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about your Black Mirror episode, San Junipero, which is, in my opinion, quite possibly the best Black Mirror episode out of all 3 seasons. And I'm not just kissing ass, I thought it was wonderful. What did you think when you got that script? And did you, I mean, everybody I think who knows about Black Mirror wants to be a part of it. Did you get that script before you had even agreed to Black Mirror? Or were you like, I'll be a part of Black Mirror? And then you got this amazing script.
No, I loved Black Mirror and didn't know that it felt so separate from our world that it just didn't seem like I never even thought about being in it. It didn't seem like an opportunity that would ever come my way. And then I got the script and was like blown away and just dying to do it. The script is so well written. Like it's paced so beautifully, and the language is so rhythmic emotionally, where everything just sort of takes care of itself for the like emotional arc of the scenes and the relationship. It's like not that long. It's a long hour of television, but for the amount of story that you have to fit into it, it's not that long. And he's so efficient with his words and with storytelling. We showed it at Toronto, and we did a Q&A afterwards, or went up to the stage quickly afterwards to...
Did people stand up and cheer when Heaven is a Place on Earth started playing? Because when I watched it at home, I started like...
No, I didn't know if people liked it at Toronto. It was a very subdued audience, but we were answering questions on the stage at the amphitheater that we were showing, and I just kept looking around and being like, I can't believe I'm talking about Black Mirror as a part of it. I'm just such a fan.
Have you read any of the theories behind that episode? Like lots of people have theories that the two of them don't actually end up together, and that there are hints of that early on in the episode, that like this is actually
the
maybe...
two-player game. Sorry, I just spit so much.
Not the two. I don't. Is it the two-player game thing?
Yeah, I read that
At
theory.
one point, Davis, who's so good, character says it's a two-player game and there are different endings depending if you play one or two-player.
Right.
Like none of which I picked up on doing the show. Just took it as verbatim. Never thought anything else.
As did I as a viewer. I didn't take any ambiguity at all to the ending. Do you put any credence to that theory?
No, well, we were talking about this a bit earlier, but I always read things in the simplest, most emotionally true way so I can do my job. The symbolism and the metaphors and the alternate endings and all of that, it really only comes in when people have seen it. And then there's this conversation with the work, which is such a, I don't know, kind of unexpected part of this that I like so much, is people put, and same with this movie, it in new light because they see it in ways that I wasn't able to see it because I had to tell a story that made emotional sense to me for the entire time. And having too many alternate realities or what ifs in it, that, I can't play a character that doesn't know where she's going or where anything can happen. It had to be a little simpler for me.
Was that character difficult for you to play as well? Because that seems to me in along the lines of what we're talking about with sort of the Caitlin switch, in the sense that she's somewhat passive and is sort of wide-eyed and learning about this world as she goes, rather than kind of actively making decisions within it.
But she was actively resetting her life. So even though she starts out very passive and just absorbing the world around her, I think that makes total sense given her backstory. But over the course of the episode, she's so active and she's she blooms into this butterfly. It was so fun to play and so cool to watch the end product of it, because she's timid in the beginning, but she's a very active character and very actively engaged in this unbelievable second chance that she's been given.
I'm going to open it up to the audience now for questions.
Hi, thanks so much for being here. This question's for Mackenzie. I love your work. I actually love watching you on screen. I think you're such an honest actress, and I love watching you.
That's so nice.
Oh, no problem. I was wondering, was this kind of a weird headspace to be in, since it's so focused on the entertainment industry and acting as you are as an actress? Or was that kind of cathartic to kind of get into?
Again, I feel like I just miss certain things, but I never, it really felt like more of a story about like being a woman than it had to do with being an actress. Being an actress is a really helpful surrogate to tell that story because you're required to have a very particular emblematic femininity as an actress. I think we want our actresses to be these like Cinderellas that are always getting dressed up and always presenting things and are you know, elegant and smart and funny and can do talk shows and make you laugh but also make you want to fuck them. Like there's so many requirements, so it's a really good surrogate to tell the story of being a woman. But I don't know, I just never really connected with the acting part of it. It felt so much more specific about like how oppressive it felt to not feel like you were doing a good job at this thing the world was telling you you should be doing naturally and effortlessly.
Next question. Hi.
Hi guys, thank you for coming. My question is for you also, Mackenzie. You mentioned that you guys are working with a small set, so I was wondering if there's anything that you learned cinematography-wise, like behind the scenes throughout the creative process.
I have many questions about that too. 4-person crew blows my mind.
It was amazing. No.
You didn't learn anything?
Well, I wasn't like behind the camera with Mark asking him what he was doing and why this and why that. I was doing my side of things. I think what was so special about it being such a small crew is that you said this earlier, but it wasn't, we weren't thinking about the movie in the end. We were enjoying the experience, and everybody's job was so important and equally weighted to make the experience and what the experience would result in this really like special magical thing. And Sophia set it up where we did these exercises every morning with the crew, and everybody was equally engaged in what we were making, which was so wonderful.
Physical exercises or like
Physical. Well, meditation, or like sometimes we would stand in a circle and jump up and down and scream yes, and then stomp on the ground and say no, like over and over and over again, just like to get us into our bodies and to get everyone out of their heads. And also, it was important. A lot of times in movies, like the crew and the cast are so separated, and I feel like as an actor, you're putting yourself in such a vulnerable position. Particularly this movie, Caitlin and Mackenzie had to go to such intense places, and I didn't want them to feel like there was just a wall of people watching them, even if it was only 4 people watching and judging or not invested in what they were doing. So I thought if we did these warm-ups in the morning, then and the crew made themselves look like idiots in the morning, then later in the day when Mackenzie and Caitlin were like screaming and crying, they'd feel less inhibited.
Have you ever had to deal with that before, Mackenzie? Because as I said, you go through pretty vulnerable places on some of the stuff that you've done. Have you ever had to deal with like crying 6 times on camera and then looking over and like an AC is like, I guess that's fine? Like,
yeah, I guess that just is, it always feels a bit embarrassing to me. Like I did a lot of plays growing up, and I remember I used to hate bowing at the end because I hated, and you mature and you realize that that's also like a good thing for the audience. It concludes the whole experience. It's not stupid to bow, but I always felt sort of like we went through this whole thing in front of you, and then 30 seconds later we're like, just kidding. And I hate that.
freeze.
Yeah. And sometimes the moment between like action and cut can feel so real, and then it's cut and you're like destroyed, but you're sort of like, okay. And I don't want to make eye contact with anybody. It just feels, I don't know, sort of, not embarrassing at all, the doing of it, but afterwards you just kind of want to like run away and be alone.
Yeah, that's something that I've always been. I don't know if in awe is necessarily the right word, but like the actor who can handle doing that in front of a group of people and then also still being somewhat friendly and sweet and sort of maintaining something, because I would always imagine that If I was that I would like do the thing and then just go. I'd get the fuck out of there. I don't want anyone to look at me. I don't want anyone to talk to me. It's like one of the reasons that I understand when people complain about actors who are like no eye contact. I'm like, that makes sense to me. If you're doing some of the things that you have to do as an actor for 14 hours in a day, I might be like, please don't look at me. I'll read into that and it'll make me uncomfortable and I won't be able to do this. Like,
that makes a lot of sense to me too. I think like acting, it seems like very magical and mysterious to people who don't do it, and maybe especially if it's a good actor, like it seems so easy, and then if an actor is in a particularly emotional place and they don't want to engage, like people get judgmental of that or something because they just don't understand the emotional toll. Like acting is exhausting, and you're putting yourself out there.
It's like so embarrassing.
Yeah, you know what? Like if
you have to. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh no.
No, you.
I was gonna say like if no one likes this movie, they're gonna know like. They're going to think of Mackenzie. They don't know what I look like. Like, she's the representative of the film. It's such a vulnerable position. Not that that's going to happen.
luckily, that won't be the case. Yeah.
But it's just like this idea that you become the representative and like absorb everything. I remember like I used to do these Q&As and people wouldn't like my character. They'd be like, I hated you in this movie. And like they take it to such a personal place.
Should have heard what he said to me before we came out.
Yeah, totally.
On stage.
So
About *Halt and Catch Fire*.
Yeah. No, I said I love the show, but it's just me.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah. Hi guys, thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to see the movie. Mackenzie, you mentioned before that there's a lot of emotionally charged moments in the film. Did you find, and this is a question for both of you, did you find that you were more open to improving those and kind of bringing more of yourself to the role, or kind of sticking to the script and making sure the moments that you would envision kind of shine through?
I mean, the movie really wasn't improvised. It was very scripted, and then the actual beats of how the wordless parts came about. We figured out together on the day, but it didn't. I don't know. There wasn't a lot of improv. I can't figure out how to end that sentence.
I think you ended it.
Okay, yeah.
I think we're about done. I have to ask you about this. It's kind of my least favorite part of doing this sometimes because you can't give any details, but you're in the new Blade Runner, right? That's amazing. If anybody sees Arrival when it comes out in a few weeks, it's a reminder that Denis Villeneuve,
is the best director.
Is amazing. Like
than Sophia.
He seems absolutely. He seems effortlessly amazing with a massive budget somehow, and I'm curious what it was like working with him.
It blows my mind. I'm worried somebody's going to compile nice things I've said about Denis because they're all so over the top, and then show him, and he'll never want to speak to me again because they're like too cloyingly obsessive. But I think he's just unbelievable, both in his vision and his execution, and that he like is such a nice person, and he doesn't have any of the neuroses or like emotional space taking up that I think a lot of directors do because of the weight on their shoulders, of course, but they just sort of let this shit bleed out of them and poison the set, and he is like pure like goodness and appreciation. He treats everybody, I mean, I don't have a big role in the movie, but he was Skyping with me for months before I came out there and treats every role as fundamental to the final product, which you should, but which often people don't, and he had enough on his plate, but he really just thanks everybody for engaging with what he's doing, and it's such a cool thing to watch.
Always Shine, when can people see Always Shine, Sophia?
It's opening in New York on November 25th, and then in other cities and video on demand and stuff, iTunes, on December 2nd.
November 25th in New York City and other cities, and then on iTunes on demand, December?
iTunes and like VOD.
All the VOD things.
Yeah, on December 2nd.
December 2nd. Thanks so much for being here, guys.
Thank
Congratulations.
you for having
Thank
us.
you.